President Trump went all out to warmly welcome the visiting British king for the 250th anniversary of the founding of the United States. But actually, the relationship between these two countries isn't very good at the moment. So under these circumstances, why did he treat the British king with such hospitality? Also, the United States' 250th anniversary marks its independence from Britain. So back then, these two countries were actually enemies. Why then, during the 250th anniversary, is there such a grand reception for the British king? Why invite the British king to the United States to celebrate? What's really going on here? Today, I'll explain the reasons behind this for you. Thirdly, there's another piece of news. Iran is facing what's called an American oil blockade, and now it's struggling to breathe, desperately searching everywhere for any possible containers to store oil. So what exactly is going on? That's the second topic we're bringing you today. In addition, there's the UAE, which has officially withdrawn from the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC. This is absolutely shocking news, something no one could have imagined, not even during the Gulf War. This is one of the consequences brought about by the Iran war. So what does this mean for the world? That's also a very clear conclusion from the South that I want to explain to you. And fourth, where was I yesterday? I didn't do my regular show yesterday because I went to the US Supreme Court. So I attended a hearing at the Supreme Court, which was related to issues concerning China. It's very likely the first time such a case has reached the Supreme Court, if my memory serves me right. So what exactly happened? Why did I give up a day of my show to go to Washington, D.C.? I waited outside the Supreme Court for 5 hours before I could get in. That's how it was. So what was really going on? That's the next topic I, Feng Wei, will bring to you. All right, welcome to Good Morning America, brought to you by Feng Wei. Hello to all our YouTube viewers and greetings to our listeners on Sound of Hope, Silicon Valley FM 96.1. Let's get started. First off, Trump, recently, the King of England is on what's called a state visit to the United States. So last night, he gave a joint address to both houses of the U.S. Congress. This is actually the first time in history that a British king has done this. The King of England is visiting the U.S. for 4 days this time, and he's staying in Washington, D.C. for all 4 days. So what exactly is going on? All right, let me start from the beginning. This past Friday, the King of England arrived at Andrews Air Force Base in Washington, D.C., and then headed to the South Lawn of the White House. There, Trump held a grand and formal welcoming ceremony for the King and Queen. This included a performance by the Army Honor Guard, the playing of both countries' national anthems, and a 21-gun salute. In short, all the formalities were observed at the highest level. After that, Trump and King Charles had a brief meeting. After that, they attended a small welcome dinner at the White House, and later that evening, a grand state banquet was held at the White House. This was one of the most elaborate state banquets since Trump began his second term, and it was very likely the most lavish one yet. On Saturday, both sides met again to discuss the international situation and related cultural activities, including US-UK relations. Then they had lunch at noon, and in the afternoon, King Charles and his wife attended a visit to a US National Historic Site, accompanied by Trump. They also met with figures from the American cultural and philanthropic communities, and in the evening, the Trumps attended a private dinner held at the White House. So I hope everyone understands now. They shared 4 meals together. That's the scale we're talking about here. So basically, Trump devoted all his time to accompanying this British king, who is really just a figurehead. Why did Trump do this? Actually, it's a pretty interesting reason, and I'll explain it to everyone in a bit. Then, as of yesterday, well, actually the day before yesterday, on Sunday, King Charles was at Congress. On Wednesday, April 27th, he was preparing to give a speech and participate in religious activities, heading to the National Cathedral in Washington. In the afternoon, he had informal meetings with members of Congress, and so on. Then, right after that, the U.S. Embassy in the UK held a reception. On Tuesday, yes, Tuesday, he delivered a speech at a joint session of the U.S. Congress, which was the highlight of the visit. So when King Charles was received, he's not a prince or a teacher's prince, he's just the king now, and has been the head of state for 3 years, the king for 3 years. This is an extremely high honor. The U.S. Congress rarely invites foreign heads of state to address a joint session. So as for the theme of the speech, I'll talk about that in a bit. What were the main points? After the speech, that's when the king officially concluded his visit and left Washington, D.C. So you see, this visit was really on such a high level. As for how it all started, it was Trump who, at the end of last year, specifically extended an invitation to King Charles. Because of the 250th anniversary of the founding of the country, to commemorate this occasion, His Majesty the King was invited, and Her Majesty the Queen was also invited to come to the United States. So that's the reason. America wanted to mark its founding anniversary in this way. What does founding a country mean? It means breaking away from Britain, because back then, America was a British colony in North America. The two sides fought a war, not for 8 years, but for 6 years, though the whole period lasted 8 years. In the end, America gained its independence. So how did things change so much later on, to the point where there's basically no animosity between them at all? How did that happen? Here, I especially want to tell a story from history. Of course, this story is a true one. So, in 1781, Britain was exhausted from fighting overseas against America, completely worn out, really. The so-called most powerful British Empire in the world, even when facing American militias, who only grew stronger the more they fought, ended up completely exhausted as well. Then, after a crushing defeat in Yorktown in 1781, 7,000 British troops surrendered in the South. Although there were still a large number of British troops stationed in New York at the time, they had already lost their fighting spirit. The British government didn't want to continue the war either, so in 1783 they signed the Treaty of Paris. 2 years later, in 1785, after the founding of the United States, the first envoy was sent. The British envoy, in today's terms, would be called the British ambassador. The U.S. ambassador, the first U.S. ambassador to the United Kingdom, was John Adams. This John Adams later became the second president of the United States, but at that time, before he became president, a few years earlier, in 1785, when he visited Britain, he said a few words to the King of England, just a short speech, about turning swords into plowshares, turning hatred into friendship. This event is very famous in history. Today, I want to share with you exactly what he said. When he met the king's expression was very stern, as if to say, "You are my traitor, a rebellious subject." After all, they had established a new country now. How dare you come see me? John Adams then spoke. Now, what do you think you should say in a moment like this? After he finished speaking, the tension between the two countries just melted away. How much time did he have to spend thinking about these words? And what exactly did he say? Everyone, listen to me. Back then, Adams was there, and of course, he first followed British etiquette, like how to bow properly, right? Then he stood up and spoke very humbly. He said, "I consider myself more fortunate than any of my fellow Americans. To have the honor today of being the first person to stand before His Majesty as the diplomatic envoy, if I can help my country gain His Majesty's gracious favor, restore full respect, trust, and friendship between the peoples of our two nations, or, to put it better, bring back that old sense of goodwill and harmony, then I will consider myself the happiest person alive." Although we are separated by an ocean and governed by different administrations, we share the same language, a similar religion, and kindred blood. As it is said in English, we have the same language, a similar religion, and the kindred blood. So as you can see, the American envoy, representing a victorious nation, used such a humble and sincere attitude to express his goodwill to the King of England. Wow, with just these few words, he completely melted away all the resentment and bitterness in King George III's heart. Later on, John Adams recalled that after King George heard what he said, he was deeply moved. You could tell, Adams said, you could see how touched he was. When the king responded, even though his words carried authority and dignity, it was obvious that his voice was trembling. He replied with a trembling voice. What did he say? He said, "Sir, today's meeting is so unique, and what you just said was so appropriate, and the feelings you expressed were so fitting. Therefore, I must say that I not only gladly accept America's assurances of friendship, and I am also very pleased with America's choice, with America choosing you as their envoy. I am truly happy about that. But I hope, sir, that you can believe and let the American people understand that in the recent conflict, the war between the United States and Britain, everything I did was what I felt I had to do, out of responsibility to my own people. I am willing to be frank with you. I was the last person to agree to independence. But now that independence is a fact, I have always said, and I still say now, that I will be the first to accept America's friendship as an independent nation. An Englishman. Wow, you see, both sides are gentlemen. Then the king adds another sentence saying, "Let language, religion, and blood have their natural and full effect." Let the circumstances of language, religion, and blood have their natural and full effect. Then, after that, the relationship between the two people becomes much more relaxed. As for the king, he even teases Jordan and Adams, saying, "I've heard that among all Americans, you dislike French customs the most, because, England and France had the 100 Years' War, they're old rivals." Adams responded very cleverly. He said, "Your Majesty, your observation is not wrong. I must confess to your Majesty that I only have feelings for my own country." The king smiled and replied, "A person from one city will never have feelings for another." Wow, as you can see from this exchange, one is the king, the other is the envoy, who later became the vice president of the United States. Back then, he was the vice president, and later he became the second president of the United States. Just from this conversation, as I've described to you, the rift between the US and the UK was smoothed over. At that time, the overall reaction in Britain was that this was the key moment of normalization between the US and the UK after American independence. It all came down to this conversation. That's why this story has been preserved to this day. The normalization and special nature of the US-UK relationship has continued ever since. This is really interesting. What do you all think? Leave a comment. Lyon Yu and Adams, as pioneers in the founding of the United States, were truly wise. Washington, John Adams, and later Thomas Jefferson, Madison, and James Madison, and so on. The pioneers who founded the United States were a very unique group of people. Yeah, I actually want to make a special series of shows for everyone in the future to talk about this, but at least what I just mentioned is a real case from history. Using just a few words to dissolve the other person's resentment and help both sides make peace again. So last night, the King of England said this in his speech to Parliament. 250 years ago, our country embarked on a journey that was both extraordinary and full of turmoil, starting from the battlefield in Yorkshire, which was actually the site of Britain's final surrender back then. From the battlefield in Yorkshire to the beaches of Normandy, from the skies over Britain, which refers to the Battle of Britain at the start of World War II, from the skies over Britain to the mountains of Afghanistan, meaning the war in Afghanistan, when the US invaded Afghanistan. Well, actually, it wasn't an invasion. So after the 9/11 attacks, the US entered Afghanistan. At that time, among the Allied forces, the British military contributed the most troops. Then King Charles said, "Our shared history is written by courage, sacrifice, and an unwavering belief in freedom. No matter what differences or disagreements exist between us, we will stand united, committed to upholding democracy and protecting people from harm. And we pay tribute to those who risk their lives every day in service to the country." He said that the alliance between the US and the UK is just as vital today as it was in the past. It's not just a relationship of convenience, but one forged in the fires of shared files. It's built on our common values: freedom, justice, and tolerance. In the spirit of the rule of law. Yeah, so really, that's how it is. So later on, there truly was a long-standing special relationship between the US and the UK. You all know about the Mayflower, right? It docked in Plymouth, Massachusetts. That ship, the Mayflower, was actually given by the British. The British gave that ship. So in a way, there really is a kind of father-son relationship between the US and the UK. And as for the son, the US grew up, became strong and tall, and turned into a world leader. But even so, it still respects its father country. Trump, for example, has a lot of respect for royalty. I don't know if you've noticed, but it's not just the British royal family. He shows great respect to all royal families. Maybe you haven't noticed, but even when he visits royalty in the Middle East, it's the same. Do you know why that is? There's a reason for this, and it comes down to one thing. Trump respects royalty because he respects human tradition. Trump is someone who values tradition. So, what does tradition really mean for many of us? Of course, there are some negative things in human history, but many, many traditions and values are truly precious to humanity. That's why Trump has always shown great respect to kings and royal families. Even in this so-called democratic era, where leaders are elected by popular vote, Trump still holds royalty in high regard. You can see this in the way he treats the British monarch, as well as his respect for all royal families. I think this is also a tradition that humanity should honor. So yesterday was pretty interesting. Trump was meeting with Prince Charles, and right in the middle of their conversation, he suddenly said, "Hey, I'm the king's brother." He said he was the king's brother, the king's cousin. What was that all about? Because the day before, the Daily Mail did an exclusive report saying that after checking, they found out that US President Donald Trump and King Charles III of the UK are actually distant cousins. After Trump saw this, he praised it enthusiastically and said, I want to tell the King of England in public. So that's what's going on, huh? What's the story here? So the Daily Mail in the UK went to investigate. If you look at the family tree, Trump's mother, on his mother's side, if you trace it back 15 generations, you get to Lady Helen. Lady Helen and the fourth generation called Lennox, the Earl of Lennox. The two of them were siblings. Their father was a Scottish nobleman, the third Earl of Lennox. Okay, and then the name of the third Earl of Lennox was John Stuart. Yeah, John Stuart. You all know about the Stuart dynasty, right? And then his great-grandfather, this person was very famous, really remarkable. His name was James II. Who was James II? James II was originally the King of Scotland. James VI was later invited by the English. He was brought over. Yeah, they brought him over to be the King of England. So the King of Scotland, James VI, overnight became the King of England, becoming the first monarch of the three kingdoms of the British Isles. So the ancestor of this Scottish king was, what was his name again? Let me think. You know that movie Braveheart, right? Have you seen Braveheart? Isn't there a British nobleman in that movie? Yeah, he teamed up with the rebel, but then the rebellion was betrayed again. In the end, he led Scotland to keep fighting, and as a result, his descendants. One of his descendants was James VI, the King of Scotland, who was later invited by the English to become King James II of England. So, as you can see, the origin of the British monarchy actually comes from Scotland. That's how it happened. And now, their common ancestor eventually passed down the line to today's King Charles III of England. If it hadn't been for that, it wouldn't have reached him, and it wouldn't have reached, say, Trump either. So the two of them really are related by blood, even though the connection is quite distant now. One traces back 15 generations, the other goes back 10, 12, or 13 generations, but they are indeed distant relatives. But that's not a big deal. You know, back in the late Eastern Han Dynasty, there was that guy Liu Bei who used to weave straw mats for a living. After checking the imperial genealogy, Liu Bei found out he was a distant cousin of Emperor Shan of Han. Actually, he was even a generation senior to the emperor. So overnight, that kid Liu Bei, who used to weave mats, suddenly became Uncle Liu, the emperor's uncle. About the origin of this Liu Shu, so Liu Bei is Liu Shu, Uncle Liu, and Trump is like the king brother of Sichuan, a play on words. So the Daily Mail summed it up by saying that Trump probably never imagined that, as a president famous for his America First stance, he would actually share a common ancestor with the British royal family. This news also spread on social media, and a lot of netizens commented, "Oh, so Trump is actually related to the King of England? No wonder he has such a royal aura." So at the welcome ceremony on the south lawn of the White House, on the very first day the King of England arrived, Trump smiled and said to King Charles, "Hey, Your Majesty, I just found out that we're actually cousins. See, I always knew there was a reason I liked you. We're family. Who would have thought?" Maybe that's why we get along so well. After hearing this, the King of England also smiled and nodded in response. Then Trump added another line, saying, "Now I understand why you have such good taste. It must be a family trait." Now I understand why you have such good taste. Runs in the family. Everyone burst out laughing. It was really funny. So when the King of England visited the US, he really let his guard down completely. If you say that US-UK relations aren't good right now, that's only because the current US president doesn't get along with the current British Prime Minister. The current British Prime Minister is just the leader of the Labour Party, right? He's only the leader of one party at the moment. So I don't think he can decide the relationship between the US and the UK. The US and the UK have had ties for over 300 years. Not just 250, but more than 300 years. So will they patch things up in the future? It's very possible. Currently, US-Iran negotiations remain stalled. Both sides are at a stalemate, but things are changing quickly behind the scenes. This is because the US continues to block Iran's oil shipments. Before the blockade, Iran was exporting 2 million barrels daily. So what happened after the blockade? The amount shipped dropped sharply. Now it's less than 600,000 barrels, and it could even drop to zero soon. No matter how you look at it, that's at least 1.4 million barrels with nowhere to go. So with exports blocked, Iran's oil stockpiles are rising rapidly. So right now, according to Iranian data, Iran's oil reserves have already reached nearly 50 million barrels. In theory, before the war, some analysts estimated that Iran's total oil storage capacity was 90 million barrels. But the actual usable space is much lower than the theoretical maximum because a lot of the equipment, even though it's there, can't actually be used to store anything. So now, every single storage tank is basically full to the brim. In other words, they're running out of storage space, and this is going to happen very soon, maybe within a few days, or at most, some say, within a few weeks. So what happens when there's nowhere left to store the oil? The only option is to stop production. Or they could just dump it into the sea. But looking at the situation now, I think the chances of dumping it into the sea are pretty slim. We all hope they don't do that. If they did, they'd basically become a global enemy. But regardless, once production stops, if they have to shut down, it will cause significant and permanent damage to Iran's oil fields, possibly affecting 30% to 50% of them. In Iran, most oil fields are old with very low pressure. As mature fields, you can't just stop production at will. If shut down, underground pressure changes, ruining the well and causing long-term capacity loss. Another thing is about oil transportation. If too much oil builds up in the pipeline and the pressure gets too high, the pipeline could rupture. So, since there still hasn't been any real progress in the negotiations between the US and Iran, Iran is basically being pushed further and further into a corner every day. Right now, Iran is trying all sorts of different methods. To put it in plain terms, they're scrambling to find any container they can get their hands on to store oil, so what are the methods they're using? There are four. The first method is using 30-year-old abandoned supertankers. They spend days towing them to Karg Island to fill them up with oil. Just this alone can store 2 days' worth of Iran's oil production. The second method is using abandoned storage tanks. Iran has already restarted using old, even poorly maintained storage tanks at its southern oil hubs, filling them up again even though they haven't been used in a long time. In addition, they're also using all sorts of makeshift containers, including shipping containers, since those can't be shipped out right now either. They seal up the inside of a shipping container and pour oil into it. Can you imagine that? Storing oil in shipping containers? They're using all kinds of unconventional methods to deal with the problem of crude oil piling up. They're doing all this to avoid having to shut down oil production. Besides that, Iran is also trying to quickly ship out crude oil by rail. So where exactly are they sending it? The destination is China. Is there a railway line between Iran and China? Of course there is, but compared to shipping by sea, transporting oil over land just isn't practical. Why? Because real overland oil transport is done through pipelines. Even oil shipped from the former Soviet Union, or Russia, to China is transported by pipeline, even though the two countries share a very long border. I mean, how could you possibly transport liquid oil one rail car at a time? The cost would be way too high and the efficiency way too low. So at best, it's just a temporary fix. Plus, getting that many rail cars together isn't easy either. What if there's a leak along the way or something else goes wrong? It's all just incredibly troublesome. So recently, the international benchmark price for crude oil has risen above $100 per barrel and has stayed up there. The rising energy costs are putting pressure on the global market, which has led to the next big headline. The UAE announced it is leaving OPEC. What exactly is OPEC? What does it mean for them to leave OPEC? This is a very significant event and will have a huge impact on the world. I'll give you a detailed analysis on this in a bit. Now, as for Trump, at the same time, Trump hasn't let up the pressure either. Trump posted 2 tweets this morning. In the first one, he said, "Hey, Iran just informed us." Right now, they're in a state of collapse. He said they want us to reopen the Strait of Hormuz as soon as possible. At the same time, they're still struggling to figure out who's actually in charge. He specifically added, "I believe they can figure it out." Then Trump posted a second tweet. He said Iran can't even get their own act together. They can't even sign a non-nuclear agreement. They'd better wise up soon. Then he posted an AI-generated image, like the one we just saw, wearing sunglasses, holding a submachine gun with explosions and fire in the background. Let's take another look at this picture. Trump really knows how to be funny. This is pretty entertaining, honestly. This is really cool. All right, so next, let's take a look. Up next, in the current situation, this has triggered an event where the UAE is withdrawing from OPEC. On April 28, 2009, they announced leaving OPEC, effective May 1st, just 3 days later. This is only the second time in OPEC's 66-year history that a member country has withdrawn. The first time was in 2016 when Indonesia pulled out. But UAE's oil production is huge, almost 5 million barrels a day. So if the UAE pulls out, it's a major shock. Let me explain why it's such a big deal. Now let's talk about what OPEC actually is. It was founded in September 1960. Back then, let me go back even further, about 80 years ago, right after World War II, the global oil industry was dominated for a long time by Western oil companies. At that time, they were called the Seven Sisters, which were the major oil giants from the UK, France, and the US. Oil-producing nations got only a small share of profits, forced to accept any price offered. They couldn't set prices themselves. In 1959, Western companies unilaterally slashed purchase prices, leaving producers feeling exploited. While Western firms took the big profits, producers were left with only the bare minimum. Then, in 1960, 5 countries, Iran, Iraq, and remember at that time Iran was still under the Shah, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, and Venezuela met in Baghdad, Iraq, and decided to establish the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, or OPEC. The goal was to coordinate their actions. Our oil policies would be aligned, we'd advance and retreat together. Basically, if one of us refused to sell, none of us would sell. In essence, it was like forming a guild or a trade association to stand up to the Western oil companies who had formed a buyer's bloc. To put it plainly, the goal was to unite and fight for the right to set oil prices. When OPEC was first established, its influence was actually quite limited. Western media even called it a paper tiger. But during the Fourth Middle East War in 1973, when the Arab countries were fighting Israel, right? The Western countries mainly supported Israel. And at that time, OPEC made a major decision. They said, we're not selling oil anymore. They imposed an oil embargo on the Western countries that supported Israel, and as a result, global oil prices quadrupled in just a few months, going from $2 to $15. This was the moment when OPEC had the greatest impact on the global economy. It was OPEC's time to shine. So this event is known as the first oil crisis, the first so-called oil crisis. This was OPEC's most glorious moment, and it left the Western countries reeling. From then on, every country started building up energy reserves. That's why even today, everyone still maintains energy reserves. Then, moving on to 1979 and 1980, 2 major events happened, the Iranian Revolution and the Iran-Iraq War. Oil prices skyrocketed again, marking the second oil crisis. This was another moment when OPEC flexed its power. So, to put it simply, how can we sum up OPEC? It was a group of developing countries at that time, that for the first time successfully united to fight back against the Western economic organizations. Their unity completely changed the landscape of the global oil industry, shifting pricing power from Western oil companies to the oil-producing countries. This became a classic example of what's called resource nationalism, the weaponization of oil and geopolitics. Then, later in the 1980s, internal conflicts broke out within OPEC. Member countries started overproducing, seriously breaking the rules, and not acting in unison, which led to a collapse in oil prices. At one point, OPEC almost completely lost its influence. By the 1990s and early 2000s, with the rise of new emerging markets like China, a large number of new buyers appeared, and oil prices once again climbed to high levels. OPEC's influence began to recover. So, up to today, OPEC, which started with 5 countries, kept adding new members and has now grown to 13 countries. So the leading country is Saudi Arabia, or sometimes called the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Then, in 2016, what was happening at that time? Back then, it was because of the increase in U.S. shale oil production. The threat to OPEC from this was growing, so at that time, they expanded OPEC from 13 countries to 23 countries. Why? They brought Russia into the group, meaning these non-Middle Eastern countries also joined in, becoming part of this monopolistic cartel. They did this to gain pricing power. That's the situation. So at that time, these 23 countries together accounted for 55% of the world's total crude oil production, quite a significant share. Meanwhile, the original 13 OPEC countries accounted for 28%. They could produce between 27 and 28 million barrels per day. That's how it was. So that's the situation. So this is a typical example of what's called a cartel, right? It's actually not good for the world economy. After all, it's a monopoly, isn't it? So a free market economy can't really function, can it? But it's actually great for the oil producing countries, right? So if that's the case, why does the UAE want to leave? The main reason is that the UAE sees oil prices soaring and they don't want to keep limiting their production. They want to make money. They feel that by staying in OPEC, they have to go along with this policy of acting together with everyone else. It's making me lose out, and they don't want to do it anymore.